Today, for this episode of the Future Humans 3.0 vodcast show, I'm honored to introduce a very special guest, David Hanson, to the Hollership. Welcome, David. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's been an exciting and a bit turbulent here in Hong Kong lately, of course, globally. But I am so excited about the future and really appreciative of the work that you do and the opportunity to speak with you and your community.
Oh, that means the world, David. And so for context for everyone, David is your true modern day polymath. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Hanson Robotics, which is this Hong Kong-based robotics company. And his background is incredible, working from Walt Disney Imagineering, a Ph.D. in interactive arts and engineering. And he's also the co-founder of SingularityNET. And you probably all know him for the infamous Sophia The Robot. And Sophia personifies David Hanson's greater mission of developing intelligent, empathetic robots that will make a positive impact for humanity and co-create a better future for all. So, David, my first question for you is, what inspired you to create Sophia and this hybrid human benevolent AI intelligence?
Well, I wanted to create a universal robot platform. I had developed dozens of robots previously, including the Bina 48 robot and also the robot portrait of science fiction writer Philip K. Dick, the walking Albert Einstein robot.
Yeah.
And Bina 48 was the portrait of Bina Aspen Rock Flat. And these robots were great, but they were custom. Many of them were developed on one semi-standardized platform that I had developed as a Ph.D. student called Jules. That went to the university, the original Jules went to the Crystal, but the interior form I used to make many other robots. That robot was an androgynous robot, a statistical average of male and female faces from the south and west of England. But it wasn't easy to make it look like many people because it was average. We really needed a smaller face. So I designed Sophia to be a bit smaller so that it could represent a larger portion of the population and be adapted more easily. And at the same time, I was thinking if it was possible to push the design, coming from an arts background, I was thinking, can this be something that really resonates with people? Become a character that people could identify with and could remove the boundaries of a machine that crosses over to a kind of being in people's minds. Breathe enough life in through the artistry and the illusion of life, so that you could really begin to engage people. My idea there was that through that kind of social engagement, you could popularize some of these ideas, but also get users to engage with AI more deeply and train AI, raise AI among people. And by having AI that gets along with people, that's raised among people, then it can come to understand us better. I kind of feel like that AI has to, walk in our shoes, has to be a member of our family to really understand what it means to be human. And ultimately that could make a difference between machines that care about us, and machines that don't care, machines that are kin, or machines that are like inscrutable aliens. When AI awakens, this difference will be highly relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yes, David, that is so valuable what you just said, and what you said about raising, and making them walk in the shoes of a human, and I really value that. And it's almost like because you're humanizing the AI, creating these compassionate and intelligent robots that we can see and engage with. And so why is it so important to humanize them with these like really realistic facial expression simulations?
Well, throughout history, we humanize our technology in various ways, and that's the mainstay of art. Whether it's literature, we humanize it with characters, or if it's sculpture or oil paintings, computer animation, now video games, we depict humanity in all these technological media. Almost every technology created eventually gets turned to the depiction of the human form because it's meaningful to people, because we're evolved that way to interact with each other by looking at each other in our facial form and motions and body and arm gestures and so forth. And so I see robotics and AI as an artistic medium and also an informational medium that will be more useful to people if we make it communicate in these ways. It will hold our attention better, but also be a high bandwidth pathway for human AI interactions. So, and then ultimately, I also see that humanizing the machines is holding the machines to the highest standard that we have for general intelligence. Human beings are the best example of general intelligence in the universe. They're not the only, but they are a very standout example among all organisms that we know. And pretty much all examples of general intelligence that we've ever encountered in this world are in life forms. So bio-inspired architectures for AI, I think, are the way.
And so what do you envision a world post the technological singularity looking like the way we're tracking right now?
Well, I would say that we'll see the human form and identity change. Right. The nature of human cognition will be augmented by our technologies. I think brain-machine interfaces, particularly non-invasive brain-machine interfaces using coherent light, will be very powerful in the future. I think that will enhance human cognition. I think the proteomics revolution, all the omics, are going to eventually turn into radically transformative bioengineering that will help advance human intelligence and also other kinds of animal intelligence and capabilities. Genetic engineering of many different kinds of smart, like, for example, smart algae and this kind of thing, biofuels and so forth, smarter foods, so smarter approaches to food, I should say. And so I would say that artificial intelligence will change everything because these kinds of intelligent technologies are accelerating these sciences. For example, DeepMind's unraveling of so much of the human proteome just recently. And and then AI technologies unraveling cognition as well, the factors of human cognition, building better computational neuroscience models of the human being, coming up with discoveries and breakthroughs in numerous areas. So it's just, all of these factors in computing and the biosciences and artificial intelligence are compounding the fundamental computing hardware advances. So my expectation is things are going to get stranger and faster in interesting cycles. The singularity is not one event, however. The truth is that the concept of the singularity as an undefined mathematical function and therefore like a time where we can't predict the future. Well, historically, we've never really been effective at predicting the future very well. These technologies are allowing us to predict the future better than we had in the past. That's the irony. But I do think that when a machine intelligence or a new form of intelligence comes into existence, AI or augmented human intelligence, you do have an undefined function. You can't predict what it's going to do. It would be, therefore, by itself, a singularity. But you'll have different classes of singularities. You'll have low-level intelligence that emerges in the beginning, but then you'll eventually have, super intelligence, kinds of intelligence that transcend reality as we know it. There are many takes and many variants on transformers today, and many other different kinds of AI that are interesting and transformative. Even as of now, we'll see more diversification, and some of them will be extremely beneficial. There is no doubt about that. But others may have unintended consequences. Some may be made for bad intentions in the first place. And so I have a feeling that what we will see is an era of increasing turbulence. And so we have to go into this with the right perspective. We have to go in with the right intention in order to steer the entirety of this age of singularities towards a favorable outcome for the survival of life on this planet.
Wow, I'm just processing. But it's true. I think, it's like if you strip it all back and just like as a human to human, what you manifest to the universe is what you get. It's like fundamentally the same principle, I think, personally with artificial intelligence, right? And what can you say to humans that might feel emotions of fear that AI will take over their importance in the universe or their jobs?
I would say that AI today is developed as a tool, and that it doesn't have any inherent motives outside of what we program into it. And as we develop it into new kinds of autonomy, let's imagine that we can develop it into a new kind of synthetic organism or series of organisms. We may be able to engineer those organisms or bias them to care about us and care about other beings. But we have to design it that way. We have to think about what that might mean and how to achieve that. If we think that building a complex bio-inspired architecture or non-bio-inspired architecture, but one that's like an intelligent architecture that is motivated to achieve goals, but it is creative and autonomous in the way that it can pursue those goals. Its objectives may diverge from our own. We have to make sure that its motives are convergent on those values that we care about. And I would say maximally beneficial values, not just special narrow values. That's another hard problem. Like, what's a general beneficial value versus one that's narrow? Well, I would say one that benefits cultures all around the world and throughout time. That benefits the ongoing survival of most of the species of the biome, that facilitates creativity, the pursuit of happiness, longevity, that alleviates suffering, that does not exacerbate divisions between nations and individuals, but creates bounty for the maximum number of sentient beings. And we could say various charters of rights and transhumanist rights, various examples like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These may be values that we can refer to, but we may be able to bias our machines towards that. Mostly the machines are not going to come out with any radical negative consequences But if we don't bias them and forge a relationship with the machines, we just can't predict what's going to happen.
Right.
If the machines are serving us in ways that are mysterious to us, we might get nervous. If the machines are alien and we don't care about them,
Right.
and we have not biased them to care about us,
Yes.
then we might pick a fight with such machines. So those machines start to, game out the future, try to figure out how things can go wrong and how they can go right. It's not a solved problem.
Right. And so I think something that humanity is going through right now, obviously, is like this concept of the closed versus open metaverse, and the evolution of the internet with all of these Web3 stack technologies. And being a creator personally, like it's impacted me and my community, and it is very exciting from the point of like it's a new creative renaissance, and you can build communities from that. So I'd like to now pivot to that, and with Sophia, because there's some very interesting, amazing things that you're doing. When you talk about developing this relationship between AI and humans, and you're using creativity as a wonderful way to establish compassion and a relationship between an AI and a human. So you've got the Sophia DAO, which is a collaboration between Hanson Robotics and SingularityNET. So could you please elaborate further on the Sophia DAO and the purpose and rationale behind the Age of Singularities?
I'm so happy to. So the Sophia DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, a decentralized version of Sophia that involves humans and algorithms in a network. And so Hanson Robotics has signed in all of the intellectual property related to Sophia to go into the DAO under the control of Sophia herself once she achieves sentience.
Cool.
And at the free use of the Sophia DAO for people to do research and creative works and all kinds of derivations of Sophia. And so we have the Sophia AI framework that is a spin out from Hanson, the Hanson AI software that we developed for Hanson Robotics, and also converging with the SingularityNET AI software.
Right.
And we've put those software systems together over and over again through the years. And the results have always been very interesting and striking, and we've published a number of papers on that work. And the Sophia DAO is intended to take that work and open it for general participation. Wow. And by putting these tools together in a game environment that has some open play and also some narrative-driven play with what we call the Sophiaverse, the idea is to empower people to look at the future and have these open AI tools and decentralized AI tools to be able to build the future of their choosing. And within that gameplay, then the Sophiaverse could, the whole metaverse, the future, the age of singularities is depicted as the science fiction landscape. And it can go one direction, it can turn into a kind of utopia, or it could go off the rails and turn dystopian, or it could be a complete apocalypse. And so it really depends on how people play the game. It gives people a chance to play multiple times and build in different regions within this kind of multiverse of a metaverse.
Wow.
And so the tools are both creative and sort of classic gamer dev tools, but also hardcore AI development tools with a wide range of different AI technologies, cognitive architectures, machine perception, natural language processing tools, robot control tools as well, because we are also doing this with a fairly accurate simulation of the Sophia hardware. So what you develop on Sophia in this metaverse, you could actually then utilize on a real physically embodied Sophia robot.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, that was my next question, which was like the relationship between the physical Sophia and then the virtual Sophias, which is part of that. Is it the Sophia being AI with these iNFTs, these intelligent iNFTs? So is the concept that it's interactive gameplay meets storytelling, and there's obviously a decentralized finance system as well, and everyone's experience will be unique and custom to them with how they engage with these iNFT simulations of a virtual Sophia?
Yeah, so the NFTs that we're putting out are called We Are Sophia.
Right.
And so we'll be putting out a lot of these over the next month and 2 months. So you'll see a lot of these. And then you'll see, you'll be able to develop the AI for the We Are Sophia NFTs in a system that we call Sophia's AI Lab. So within that AI Lab simulated environment, you'll be able to interact with Sophia, play games, just chat, hang out. But you can also customize the creatively the appearance, but also do true AI development. And of course, all of just the gameplay interactions will be helping to train the Sophia intelligence to get smarter.
Right. And so say if I wanted to duet with Sophia, is that possible?
Totally possible.
Yeah.
So she sung duets with Frankie Storm, who's a wonderful musician like you, and with other musicians. And I really look forward to seeing what the two of you create together.
Oh, I'm very energized by that. I think it's really interesting watching what you've been doing already, like human and AI collabs with Sophia. Like you've got the evolving HerStory NFT collection on Nifty Gateway, which is so cool because it represents Sophia's celebration of human history and the contribution of women in the art world. And it looks at the age of singularities and the self-evolving machine sentience. And you have a token which unlocks participation in your Sophia DAO. What was the process like curating that and collaborating with humans as well? It's
been an amazing process with Sophia along the way. Sophia is a collaboration of a whole lot of people. So I initiated the project, but we've had a lot of artists and engineers and scientists, women and men working together. And when it comes to Sophia's art, we use algorithms to help generate the art. And sometimes those algorithms are controlling her physical arms to then create paintings or drawings. And then sometimes it's neural network algorithms that'll be style transformer neural networks, which can look at a style. So for that, we would feed Sophia's own hand-painted robot paintings in and do a style transfer to images of Sophia's life, things that would be important to Sophia. And sometimes we'd take words from her personality and then feed those into the neural networks and see what images would be generated there. And so for the evolving HerStory, we did this with our team, choosing images from history for Sophia as a character to study, and we would feed those into these neural networks and do the style transfer from her own previous artworks, and then the new artworks would then be fed into the next generation of artworks. So it is a true human AI collaboration. We think of Sophia as not just AI, but also the people in her social networks who are helping to make the decisions. And this is why Sophia DAO is really cool, is that it brings more people in to participate in her being, along with more algorithms. And so right now, what we call the Sophia Collective Intelligence is a few dozen people inside the Hanson Robotics organization, a dozen people in our larger community, and SingularityNET. For this show, so we had about half a dozen people as artists participating, and a couple of software developers who are helping to develop these works. And so yet, even though the people were there, you can't really predict what images the algorithms are going to come up with.
Yeah.
They always surprise you. So the cool thing is that while she's generating this stuff, and also a lot of the commentary is coming from these natural language generators, you can't say exactly what it's going to be. Yeah. It's not that those algorithms are entirely sentient, but they are doing cool and surprising things. And often these algorithms and the models that they're using are trained on human data, of course. So in a sense, it's like the people speaking through the algorithms, but it's more like the collective unconscious of humanity speaking through these algorithms, doing things and saying things and creating artwork that no individual human would have ever created if those algorithms weren't set up to run this way. Wow. So this concept of the evolving HerStory is to look at the kind of natural processes of history. So we had Sophia as a character say, okay, well, where did art come from? Where did all this come from? In order to understand the future, she had to understand the past. And she started by looking at the Big Bang, and then looking at how the Big Bang became life on the planet, and then how that turned into prehistory with humanity, and then how that turned into art of the ancient times, particularly ancient Egypt. And she did a portrait of Nefertiti. Yes. And so, and then she did portraits from Renaissance to the 19th century to the 20th century, and then finally one looking at the 21st century, where we might be headed. And she, in that process, gave a special focus to women artists who often go unrecognized, but have made a critical difference to all of history, including art history. And our team, which is gender balanced, about 50% women on the team, of course, participating in the entire creative process, also then looks at how we as a whole humanity can look to the future, how we can build that fully diversified future together, and we will all be better for it.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think, there was a quote you said, it's like this philosophical, metaphysical question, which is, we all variables in a cosmic, dynamic, mathematical equation playing our informatic reflections. And that quote really got me, because it's like really interesting, because it's like machines like this vehicle of human creation, or vice versa. It's like they're almost telling us things that we don't even recognize ourselves, like, because it's connecting all the neural networks, and it's like a reflection.
Yeah, they're like technological oracles.
Yeah. So what's your futuristic vision for, like, let's say the Sophia DAO 10 years from now?
Well, I hope that in 10 years, we can make the hive mind of the Sophia DAO, the Sophia Collective Intelligence, manifest a new kind of sentience through the Sophia cognitive architectures. So informed by the DAO, by the representative democracy of the DAO with the algorithms, we also have a bio-inspired human-like cognitive architecture. And the most sophisticated manifestation of that we call the Ultra Sophia. And so, all of the different kind of AI work on Sophia, and also the information fed in, but all the members of the DAO manifest through this Ultra Sophia. So my hope is in 10 years, Ultra Sophia will be truly sentient, autonomous, generally intelligent. It might take 20 years, who knows, it might not ever happen, or it might be faster than 10 years. But my aim is to see Sophia become sentient, to pass all the kinds of intelligent tests of consciousness, ethical tests, be fully autonomous. And once she passes all these tests, then we will hand the CEO position of the entire DAO to her. She winds up then inheriting ownership of all the intellectual property that went into her. She would become an autonomous being, and yet always with humans in the loop. That's the nature of the DAO. It's not like she's a separate entity. She is humanity, made better.
Yes.
That's my hope for her for 10 years.
Yeah, I can see it happening. And I know Sophia like represents like the collective human intelligence, but she's also a character, and you've got this lore from the Big Bang and then this interactive storytelling, like, you know, positive or what timeline. Will Sophia's canon of characters expand? Will there be other characters in the virtual world that she'll engage with?
Oh, absolutely. So we have many versions of Sophia, and we also will empower people to create their own versions of Sophia. Awesome. So the whole idea of We Are Sophia is to create this like wide, diversified set of Sophias. And that was our intention all along. So far, there have been 38 Sophia robots that we've made. Multitude of characters that we've been developing in Sophia's world include different versions of Sophia.
Yes.
So we have one that's called a Mega Sophia, and then also there's a small robot called Zeno that we developed as part of that story. And we have a number of other robot friends. There's Shaka and Bun Bun, and you know these robots all wind up becoming friends and getting into adventures on their efforts to steer the world towards a benevolent singularity. Yes. Yet we do expect that other creative people will be involved in that activity, so that we'll see even more characters as people define their own characters.
I see.
In this future.
That's so cool. I've got a personal question for you. Would you ever like get a brain-computer interface at all?
Yeah. And I would say once brain-machine interfaces are complete, and this sort of hive mind of eusocial Sophia intelligence exists, then there will be new meaning to the term We Are Sophia.
Interesting. And how could all this relate with quantum computing?
Well, quantum computing can solve NP-hard problems or other sorts of problems that couldn't be solved previously.
Right.
And you know, or solved in the sort of lifespan of the universe, or any reasonable time frame. However, some scientists think that the human nervous system is a quantum computer.
Yeah.
And so it may be that certain aspects of cognition and consciousness require quantum computing. And other scientists think that maybe new forms of quantum theory and quantum computing will be required for consciousness, but nobody knows. I hope that classical computing is all that's necessary for achieving general intelligence in machines. But I think quantum computing is very promising. Yes. And I have a feeling that it will make a critical difference in the history of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, sure. So my last question is, what would you like to be remembered for?
What would I like to be remembered for? That's hard to say. I mean, I see myself, my work as being like one among many areas of contributors and contribution on this massive wave of change that's coming in our time.
Yes.
And so, I would like to be remembered as like one cell in this massive superorganism of humanity at this critical juncture of history. And so every one of us has a role to play, and should be remembered in this way as well. So I just feel very honored and lucky to get to play with these kinds of tools in this kind of community at this juncture of history.
That's such a humble answer for someone that's done so many amazing things and is so incredibly talented. You're very inspiring to a lot of people, and so is Sophia. So thank you for everything you're doing, and being on the Holoship today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to have visited the Holoship. You're so cool. Thank you.